Hi, I'm Jason Jarrett. I'm a spotter for Ryan Newman at Roush Fenway Racing. I've been around NASCAR racing basically my whole life. My dad and my grandfather both raced in the Cup Series. My grandfather raced back in the 50s and 60s, and my dad and my Uncle Glenn also raced in the different divisions of NASCAR. My dad raced all the way up until 2008 in the Cup Series, and my Uncle Glenn raced back in the 70s and 80s. Yeah, my favorite racetrack's always been Martinsville, I think. Not necessarily from a spotter standpoint. I just remember as a kid going there. I was fortunate enough to grow up around the same time that Dale Earnhardt Jr. and myself and Brad Means, Jimmy Means' son, were all, we pretty much, while our dads were doing their thing, we were running around in the infield. It was a fun time, and I remember places like Martinsville more so than I do a lot of the bigger tracks once they came around. The older I got, the closer to getting my license, the more involved I got at my dad's race shop, the more involved I got in wanting to try driving and working on the cars. So when I was about 15, I started racing go-karts, and in 2005, Billy Venturini got hurt racing at Daytona, and I actually raced in 2005, which would have been my last season driving. I raced in the ARCA series in 2005 until he was able to come back from his injuries, and that's the year that I basically became a spotter, because I had done as well as I was going to do, or gotten as good as I was going to be. The opportunities were just not there to drive anymore. So I transitioned into being a spotter, and I've been on the spotter stand from 2005 until 2021. I've spotted for Hermie Sadler. I've spotted for my dad, Dale Jarrett. In 2006, I went to Robert Yates Racing. I believe it was like right around May or June, he had called me and said that he was going to change spotters, and if I wanted to switch over from the team I was with to him. And I was really excited that he would even think of me for that opportunity. And 2006, I started working with him, and I worked with my dad from 2006 until 2008 when he retired. That gave me a lot of experience, but I will say that it was a little different spotting for him versus drivers that I'm not related to. Looking back on it, I think I was a little bit more cautious, but I did learn a lot, and I'm thankful that he gave me those years to become a better spotter each year. After that, I went to Scott Riggs at Haas Racing, and then I went to Penske with David Strimmy, and then I was at Germain Racing with Casey Mears and Max Pappas, and then in 2013 I went to Stewart Haas Racing, got the opportunity to interview with Ryan Newman, and I've been very fortunate to be with a driver of his caliber for this many years. 2013 to 2021, to work with the same Cup driver, it's just been it's just been an opportunity that, looking back on it, I can say I'm very fortunate that he and I kind of have clicked for that long, and had a good line of communication from the very first time I ever interviewed with him. Yeah, I probably talk a little less than some of the spotters that I've either listened to or heard on the different TV programs that come on. I probably talk a little less. I learned from him that he's listening for keywords that I'm saying, not necessarily in the entire sentence. And so from that day forward, I feel like I've just taken the mindset to say things that I feel like the driver wants to hear, no matter whether things are going good or going bad. You have to take the initiative to go ahead and say it, because he needs to know as quickly as possible what I'm seeing around him and what I'm seeing develop around his car or in front of his car on the racetrack. So I probably talk a little less, but I feel like that allows me to be a little bit more informative with shorter phrases or less words. Racing people usually don't ever use the word scared, but looking back to the Daytona 500 last year, just the feeling of being a couple hundred yards from winning the Daytona 500 to witnessing a crash like that with a driver that you really have come to care about outside of the race car, in the race car. And you know, a lot of people, you know, they brand the spotter as you're trying to get a competitive edge, just something else to get a competitive edge. And I've always looked at it from the standpoint of safety. And of course you want to win. But looking back to that crash last year and not hearing his voice after that, and not hearing, and then also to hear his dad get on the radio. I've known Greg longer than I've known Ryan, really. And to hear his dad get on there, it was one of the scariest moments I've ever experienced. The first year I spotted for Ryan, he won the Brickyard 400. And that was, I mean, just to look back at that weekend, I mean, we were fast in practice, we were fast in qualifying, and we were fast in the race. And it's just one of those weekends I look back and everything just seemed to click that weekend. And you don't get many of those. You think every weekend you go to the racetrack with the mindset that we're gonna win practice, we're gonna win qualifying, we're gonna win the race. But looking back at that weekend, it just, something clicked about the entire weekend. And not to mention, I mean, Ryan's great at that track anyway, but everything went great. And I just remember I remember the excitement of Victory Lane and being out there, on the start finish line. I remember kissing the bricks, which is a tradition that my dad, Dale Jarrett, started when he won the Brickyard 400. And so that, just all of that stuff coming together for that one special moment, if that's the last win that I experienced, I'll never forget it. I don't know I remember playing baseball in high school, and it was similar to that, but I don't know that there's another feeling in business or in sports that we can all do our individual jobs and not necessarily even see each other throughout the weekend. We all know how to, the crew chief, the driver, the spotter, the engineers, we just all know how to do our specific jobs to try to get to that one goal. And I mean, winning is obviously the ultimate goal, but when you finish the race and you know you've done your best and your driver's safe and your pit crew's safe, I think that whether you finished 24th that day or first, it's a successful day as a spotter when you can say that.